You've lost count of the nights you've wasted? Don't bother denying it. You've laid in bed, that gnawing feeling in your gut, knowing something's off, knowing today was just another page in a story that feels like it's going nowhere. And yet, you keep going through the motions, hoping somehow, someday, change will just happen. But let me hit you with a truth you might not want to face. Change isn't some gentle miracle. It's a battle. It doesn't tiptoe in with a polite knock. You either grab it by the throat or it never shows up. There's no in between. And if you keep waiting, hiding behind excuses, distractions, and empty promises, you'll stay stuck right where you are. You've got a life that doesn't light you up. You feel it in your bones every time the lights go out and the silence screams at you. You don't need me to spell it out, but instead of doing something about it, you lie to yourself. I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right time. I need to fix this first. And just like that, days turn into years. But here's the thing. Tonight doesn't have to be the same. Tonight could be the pivot, not because the stars aligned or some cosmic sign appeared, but because you decide it will be. Right here, right now. No permission needed. No more delays. And here's the kicker. Your story isn't set in stone, no matter how much you think it is. You can rip up the script. You can rewrite the plot. You can stop being a background character in your own life and step into the lead role. The question is, will you? But there's a price to pay for this transformation, and that price is the truth. The method is brutally simple: a notebook, a pen, and the silence of the early hours. 3 things, nothing more. You don't need a guru. You don't need another self-help book. You don't need to wait until you feel motivated. You just need to sit down, take a breath, and write. Write about what you're doing wrong. No filters, no sweeteners, no excuses you usually wrap yourself in to avoid facing reality. Because here's the problem. You don't change because you don't dare to look at yourself honestly. You prefer to avoid the mirror rather than accept what you see. Nietzsche said it clearly, become who you are. But here's the catch. To do that, you first need to discover who you really are. And that's not done with motivational quotes or cheap positive thoughts. It's done with surgical brutality, with the ability to break down each mistake, each fear, each doubt that has brought you here. Jung warned, suffering is the most powerful tool to know yourself. And you've been running away from it. You've numbed it with distractions, with empty entertainment, with the false belief that if you ignore the problem long enough, it will disappear. But it won't disappear. Change only happens when you decide to tear away the blinders and look at what's underneath. And what's underneath, if you're honest, is a disaster. But here's the important part. Disasters can be rebuilt. Mistakes can be corrected. Stories can be rewritten. Think of Tarantino, a regular guy with no connections, no clear path. But he had something most people don't, an obsessive passion for the story he wanted to tell. And here's the key, his story, not the one the world expected from him, not the one his circumstances seemed to dictate. His. And you. What story are you writing? Is it yours or is it a script imposed by others? The difference between those who change and those who stay stuck in mediocrity is simple. The former face themselves with the same rawness with which Tarantino writes his scripts. They don't allow themselves to soften reality. They don't cover up mistakes. They don't hide behind empty justifications. So here's the challenge. Tonight, when everyone is asleep, when the noise of the world fades away, take a notebook and write. No censorship, no mercy. Write everything you're doing wrong, every stupid decision, every fear that has held you back, every excuse you've used to avoid moving forward. Write until it hurts. And when it hurts, keep writing. Then find the solutions. Don't try to justify anything. Don't tell yourself, it's not that easy. Of course, it's not easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But here's the part they don't tell you. You don't need to solve everything tonight. You only need to make one decision, a small decision, something concrete that you can do tomorrow to start changing the course. Because if you wait until you feel ready, you'll never be ready. If you wait for the fear to disappear, it never will. The only way to kill fear is to move despite it. And the only way to change your story is to grab the pen and rewrite it with your own hands. This is the truth no one tells you. You can change your life in a single night, not because everything will magically be solved immediately, but because the moment you decide to face reality without excuses, that's the moment everything starts to move. There's no written destiny, no predetermined ending. There's only the story you dare to tell and the story you resign yourself to living. Which one will you choose? And if you've made it this far, it's because a part of you knows you have to do it. Not for inspiration, not for passing motivation, but because the emptiness you feel every night is proof that something in your life is not working. And it's not a problem of luck, nor of circumstances, nor of the world being against you. It's a narrative problem. Your story isn't writing itself. It's being written with every decision you make, and more importantly, with every decision you avoid making. You think inaction is neutral, but it's not. Every time you postpone what you know you should do, you're still writing your story, just not the one you want. So what will it be? Will you keep letting the pen slip from your hands, or will you take control and rewrite the script? The choice is yours, and it starts tonight. You need to do what you know you need to do, because every time you don't, you're making an active decision to stay in the same place. And here comes the scary part. If you don't become the author of your story, someone else will do it for you. The expectations of others, social pressures, the routine that slowly numbs you, they'll all take the pen from your hands. How many filler characters do you know in real life? People trapped in jobs they hate, in relationships that don't fulfill them, in bodies they can't stand, in minds that don't even belong to them anymore? Do you know why they're there? Because at some point they decided it was easier not to decide. They convinced themselves that it was more comfortable to go with the flow, to tell themselves, this is life. But that's the most dangerous lie of all. This is life is what people say when they've already given up on writing their own story. You need to understand this once and for all. There's not just one script for you. There's not just one ending written. There are hundreds of versions of you waiting in the shadows, and each one depends on the choices you make from today. It can be the version that keeps doing the same thing, dragging the same mistakes, finding excuses to stay the same. Or it can be the version that grabs the pen, sits at that table, and starts to dissect each damn mistake. No anesthesia. And I know what you're thinking. You don't have time, you don't have energy, you don't have clarity. But here's the truth. You don't need all the answers right now. You just need to start. Because every moment you wait, every excuse you make, is another line written in a story you didn't choose. So what's it going to be? Will you let someone else finish your story? Or will you take the pen and write the next chapter yourself? The choice is yours, and it starts tonight. Lieutenant, what you don't have is the courage to face what you know you'll find when you start writing. Because the problem isn't the lack of answers. The problem is you already know the answers, and you don't like them. You know what you need to change. You know what you're doing wrong. You know where you're failing. But accepting it is painful. Because accepting that you've been the architect of your own misery means accepting that you could have done it differently. And that sucks. It sucks a lot. But here's the twist. That pain is the only exit door, the only way out of stagnation. If you have the courage to look straight at what you've done with your life, you also have the power to change it. But most don't go that far. Most prefer to numb themselves with distractions, with empty entertainment, with the absurd hope that time will fix everything. Let me save you years of disappointment. Time doesn't fix anything if you don't use it to change. It only becomes the graveyard of all the versions of you that could have been. And here's where the story takes another turn. Because in this transformation process, there's something people underestimate: the importance of silence. Think about the moments when you've truly understood something about yourself. It wasn't in the middle of the noise. It wasn't while scrolling on your phone, looking for another distraction. It was in solitude at night, in those seconds before sleep when there's no escape but your own mind. That's why the method demands the early hours. Because night is the only time of day when the world stops interrupting you. It's the only moment when there's no external noise, when no one expects anything from you, when at last you can hear yourself without interference. And here's the trick. If you're afraid to be alone with your thoughts, it's because you know there are monsters in there. And that's exactly what you need to face. The night is your editing room. It's the moment when you can cut scenes that no longer serve you, rewrite dialogues, change the tone of your story. You don't have to do it all in one night, but you have to start. Because every minute you spend without taking control is another minute in which someone else does it for you. And if you need proof, think of Tarantino again. He didn't become a film genius because someone gave him permission. He didn't wait for the world to approve of him before he started writing. He sat in a solitary room and did it because he understood something you haven't fully grasped yet. You don't need anyone's permission to rewrite your story. The pen is in your hands. The question is, will you use it? But there's more. Something few people tell you when talking about personal change. Change isn't just about doing the right things. It's about stopping the wrong things. And this is where most people fail. They focus so much on adding new habits, on making endless lists of goals, on promising themselves that this time they'll change, that they forget the most basic thing. First, you have to cut what's rotten. Imagine that your life is a movie that you've been shooting nonstop for years. Badly done scenes, repeated takes, moments that make no sense. Before you shoot something new, you need to edit the old. So do it tonight. Write, but not only about what you want, write about what you have to let go of. That relationship that doesn't add anything. That habit that's destroying your body. That thought you repeat every day that keeps you trapped. Find them, point them out, and do what a good director would do. Eliminate them from the story. And don't get me wrong, this isn't magic. It's not a cheap motivation trick. It's not about writing a list and hoping the universe does the rest. It's about deciding to turn it into an action manual. Looking at yourself in the mirror tomorrow and knowing that this time, even if it's only for one night, you had the courage to face yourself without mask. Because if you do this, if you really do this, something will change inside you. It won't be immediate. It won't be easy. But the difference between a forgettable story and one that leaves a mark isn't in the perfection of the protagonist. It's in their ability to change course when everything seemed lost. Now tell me, will you keep being a secondary character in your own movie? Or will you sit down tonight and start writing the role you were born for? I'm going to tell you something no one has probably told you with enough clarity. There is no turning back. There's no sign on the road that tells you now's the time. There's no safety net, no guarantees. There's only tonight, only this decision, only this moment. And if you wait too long, if you keep postponing it, if you keep running, one day you'll look back and realize there's no time left. That's the fear no one talks about. Not the fear of failing, not the fear of making mistakes. The real fear is waking up one day and realizing you have no margin left to change. That the script is too far along, that the opportunities have passed, that you've become what you swore you would never be. And the worst part, it won't be a big, dramatic moment. There won't be a cinematic climax with epic music in the background. It will be subtle. It will be a series of small decisions that before you know it, will have built the cage in which you'll spend the rest of your life. So what's it going to be? Will you let the script write itself? Or will you grab the pen and start cutting what doesn't belong? The choice is yours and it starts tonight. You have to make a decision now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, because every day you postpone is another day the world steals from you. And believe me, the world is happy to take the space you don't claim. If you don't decide who you are, someone else will do it for you. But here's the harshest part. No one is coming to save you. There's no secret mentor waiting for you. There's no invisible hand that will pull you out of the hole. No one is going to show up with a magical answer. The only person who can rescue you is you. And that shouldn't scare you. It should liberate you. Because if you are the problem, you are also the solution. Look around you. The world is full of people who live on autopilot, people who do the same thing every day, who complain about their life but never do anything to change it. You can't be one of them. You can't afford to be one of them. Because if you've made it this far, if you're still listening, it's because a part of you knows you're not made for mediocrity. And the only difference between those who change and those who stay stuck is this. The first ones decide to act before they feel ready. They don't wait for motivation to arrive. They don't wait for fear to disappear. They don't wait for everything to make sense. They act because they understand something most people never do. Fear doesn't disappear before you start. It disappears along the way. So close your eyes for a second and visualize this. Tomorrow you wake up and everything is the same. Same excuses, same problems, same routine. A month passes, a year passes, 10 years pass. You're still in the same place. How does that feel? If that thought makes your stomach turn, then you already have your answer. You can't keep waiting. You can't keep postponing. Tonight, grab that pen, open that notebook, face the reality, write what you've avoided writing. Take the time to dissect each one of your excuses. Do it with the brutality of a director who knows the story won't work unless the unnecessary scenes are cut. This is your life. This is your script. And the only way to rewrite it is to start now. Not when you feel ready, not when the fear is gone. Now, because the moment you decide to act, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, is the moment you take control. And that's where the real story begins. Who isn't afraid to cut scenes that don't work? Because at the end of the day, there are only two types of people in this world. Those who write their story and those who let others write it for them. Which one will you be? If this video made you think, if there's a phrase that stuck with you, I want you to leave it in the comments. Write, I'm rewriting my story. Because if you've made it this far, it's because a part of you has already made the decision, even if you don't know it yet. And if you want more content like this, subscribe, but only if you're really ready to face the truth. There's no soft content here. We go raw, we go real. If you're still here, it's because you're looking for something more. Now go write, no more excuses.